What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Midwest Outdoors Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jim O'Neill, and welcome into the studio. We have a great show for you today. As you see, we have some friends joining me because this is the Panfish show. We're talking panfish, we're talking FishDaddy, we're talking FishDaddy and Panfish, all right? We're going to be joined by Andy, the owner of FishDaddy, and we have a very special guest to start us off once we're through the news. He is the hottest or second hottest name in bass fishing right now, so we're going to get into that. But before we do that, as always, we're going to run you guys through the news, and we're going to start with, that's right, we have a state record to announce this week. Hey, down in Arkansas, there's this guy, Mike Shepard, and Mike was trolling for striped bass. That's what he likes to do. Well, he thought he had the state record striped bass on. Turns out 45 minutes later, he lands a 127-pound, 6-ounce paddlefish, snagged in the side. Now you're asking, hey, how can that count? Well, paddlefish and carp are the only two that I know of species that can be recorded after being snagged. Now they have to be within a certain time frame, right? And his just made it. They have a new short season from April 15th to June 15th down on Beaver Lake in Arkansas, and that's where he caught it. But truly an unbelievable fish. Luck, as you have it, sometimes plays in your favor. So it could have been the side of a tree he ran into, but it was a 127-pound fish. So congrats on that, Mike. Other stuff in the news, you know, this isn't as eye-popping, but this year the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the National Fish Habitat Society partnered up and put together $27 million to improve fisheries and outdoor locations around the country from coast to coast. And a big chunk, $500,000 of that is going into the driftless area. So to our friends in, southwest Wisconsin and southeast Minnesota, that driftless area is going to get some much needed improvements. It's going to improve the trout fishing. It's going to hopefully create more fishing opportunities, more accessibility, and bigger fish. So that sounds great. Down in Illinois, also Rend Lake is getting some facelifts, all part of that $27 million. So good to see some of that money being spent right here in the Midwest to improve the fisheries. As for the tournament check-in, we do have a nice update. A friend of the show, a previous guest, Easton Fothergill, again, the man wouldn't let a brain surgery stop him, and he ain't letting anything else stop him. He just became the second individual to qualify for the Classic via the college bracket and now through the Opens. He won this past weekend on Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma. He won a 3-day event, Bassmaster Open, with 52 pounds, 8 ounces, anchored by a day 3, 8.5-pounder that he caught on shallow water on a spinning rod. It was great TV. Easton, I know I already reached out to you, but congrats if you're watching the show. We'll see you at the Classic. Another year you get to go. Another year of making dreams come true. The MLF just started today on the James River. We're going to take a peek real quick at that. And no surprise, Jacob Wheeler has a 30-pound lead on day one right now. So if you're into watching what the MLF is still doing these days, check into that. Jacob Wheeler's got a 30-pound lead on day one. No shocker there. This weekend, the Bassmaster Elite Series is back in action as well, and they are on Smith Lake in Alabama. I would say if you're putting together a fishing fantasy team right now, look out for Mr. Jordan Lee. That is his home lake and not far away from where he went to high school and college. So good chance he finishes pretty high. Now, guys, besides all that, like I said, this is the pan fishing episode. And I just wanted to take a second to talk about panfish because it's so nostalgic. It's such a part of fishing in not only the Midwest here, but when I went down to the South, learned about the culture there. Out in California, I just listened to a speaker this past winter about shell cracker or crappie fishing out there. So, you know, panfish is loved across the country. And I'm not the only person. I think when we see a freak of nature somewhere else, it gets our blood going. You know, as of recently, the last 2 years, one of the number one goal of mine is to leave the Midwest and go down to Lake Havasu in Arizona and catch a 3 to 5 pound sunfish. You know, I truly think that sounds unreal. It sounds like a childhood dream, right? But it is possible. And only in that place. And I think the European perch sometimes, although a different species than the lake perch here, gets the imagination going when you see a 6, 7, 8 pound perch in Europe. You know, it's just something different. But for such a little fish, the normal panfish, right, is only a few ounces. I think the normal bluegill weighs 4 ounces and is 5.5 to 6 inches long. Again, it's normally not a whole lot to write home about. However, speaking of the bluegill especially, may very well be the toughest pound for pound fighting fish in the world. It just, well, isn't that big. So imagine fishing for fish that are 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, but shaped like a bluegill and fight like a bluegill. It'd be the best fighting fish in the world. I think that's why a lot of people fall in love with saltwater fishing. You know, you have a lot of flatter fish that have wider bodies, like a permit or a jack or something like that. Again, the size of kind of the shape and size of a bluegill, but much bigger. So I've been fascinated with pan fishing. I think every child, that's how their fishing gets started. You know, some are fortunate, right? Some get hooked onto a big pike or a big bass right away. But just watching a bobber go down or watching the pull of a line is the core roots of fishing. It goes past fishing. It goes past the sport and the hobby of it. It's truly something that's instinctual in the human body, especially I think as a male, right? As a provider, you know, you see that bobber go down and it starts something in your brain that I think goes past enjoyment. It's truly chemistry of knowing that you are catching something and that you can provide. After all, the name panfish, they're made to go in the pan, and they are delicious. So we're going to talk more about panfish and some stories about it and how to catch them. We're going to talk about some baits with Andy here in a minute from FishDaddy that will really, truly up your catches this season. But before we do that, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere because when we come back, we are joined by Drew Gill, one of truly the hottest fishermen in the planet right now.
Midwest Outdoors Magazine helps you enjoy the outdoors, giving you the best information on where to go, what to use, and how to use it. With fishing maps marked by the pros, nature notes, in-depth interviews, and much, much more. Your subscription gets you 10 big issues of the best in fishing, hunting, and the great outdoors. Plus, Midwest Outdoors Digital Edition gives you dozens of extra articles. Sign up now at mwomag.com. That's mwomag.com.
From the company that brought innovation to the ice fishing world with their advancements in LED and glow technology, now brings you a new eco-friendly biosilicone bait that is infused with Terabyte, a proprietary solution comprised of amino acid, omega-3, and pheromones that will generate more strikes, which equals more fish. For more information, visit FishDaddyOutdoors.com.
All right. Well, hey, last show we were talking about him. We talked about how he hosted another trophy, and it is a Midwest son himself, Drew Gill. What's going on, Drew?
Man, I'm just living the dream. Very happy to be doing what I'm doing. It's pretty exciting stuff, and I'm loving it. I'm on the road right now and in New York still, and reeling in them smallmouth, so really can't complain.
Nothing gets more Midwest than a smallmouth. I know they got them down in Alabama, right? And they got them in New York, but I feel like in the Midwest, you know, we're the smallmouth people.
Dude, I would dare say there's nobody that appreciates smallmouth the way that, like, especially Wisconsin and Minnesota, like there's nobody in the country that appreciates smallmouth the way that they do. And man, I'm being from Illinois, the southern part of the state. I don't really, around the house immediately, I don't really get to fish for them a whole lot. Man, as soon as I got to, when I was about 15, 16, the first time I got to it, I was like, these are my favorite. Like, I don't care. Don't get me wrong. I love catching largemouth. I love catching spotted bass. But when I get to catch smallmouth, there's just something different about it, man. When you hook into a big brown one, it comes bottle rocking out of the water, and starts jumping around, pulling drag. Like, there's nothing that just quite makes you giggle like a big smallmouth does. So.
Yeah, absolutely. They're like, they're like the perfect mix, I say, between a bluegill and a largemouth. You get the size of a bass, but you get the anger and the tail thumping of a bluegill in the smallmouth.
For sure, dude. They're a magnificent creature, and they're really pretty to boot. So that's always a cool factor. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of fish that fight hard, but not all of them are aesthetically pleasing, and a smallmouth definitely is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, we got you for a few minutes today, and it's time to give a fishing report. So you know what I thought? I know you just had your tournament in North Carolina, right? But I'm wondering if you can compare something that you learned in the Midwest, whether it's down by your home or somewhere a little further north or down in Kentucky, somewhere in the Midwest that fished like that river in the Midwest, something that you learned in the Midwest and what that body water is and how you'd be fishing it right now.
Yeah. So the biggest comparison that I can draw in the Midwest, specifically to the Chowan River, in terms of looking at things and how they laid out and how I felt about certain areas setting up, reminded me a lot of fish in the main river of the Mississippi. I've been on La Crosse is the one place on the Mississippi River I've been. So pools 7, 8, 9, and a lot of the back channel stuff and the undercut stuff and the wood cover stuff you do with the big laydowns, the deadfalls, and the beaver dams and stuff that you get in the backwaters of those pools is very similar to the stuff you get on the Chowan River. They're relating to, you'll get small groups of fish relating to single stretches of big wood targets. And regardless whether the water rises or falls, they've always got that piece of cover to relate to. So even though the area, having vegetation around or having, those good, current related areas is a big part of it, they want to relate to that wood cover a lot of times, especially in the summer. Up there, we're just starting to get into the summer. But at Chowan River, North Carolina, you're straight up knee deep in summertime. And so, fishing, that's one of my favorite things to do on any river in the summer, is go fish big wood targets, especially around, undercut or dirt areas. Especially if I can get around an area that's got some good vegetation, got any sort of flow whatsoever or movement. You're just gonna get a hub of life, and that's something that definitely works for me on the Mississippi River. If you're looking to go out there and reel in a whole bunch, look, I don't care if it's La Crosse, further up the river, even into the smallmouth areas, or further down into Iowa and stuff. It's something that works in just about every pool of the Mississippi River, as far as I'm concerned. Fishing those big wood targets that are isolated pieces of cover, stuff that's so far, a good distance away from everything else, is such a good way to consistently get bit, especially by big largemouth. And it's something that I always try to play whenever it's working, because when it's working, you catch a very high grade of fish on average, and that's what happened at Chowan, and that's what happened for me fishing that kind of stuff at La Crosse last year for the Invitational. So something that I definitely enjoy doing, and it's something that if you're looking to go reel a few in, I would definitely give a shot to, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, hey, everyone, that is your tip from not only a top 5 standing angler right now on the tour, but top 5 also on the Invitationals. We got to do a little research, Drew, to see if anyone's ever done that before, but
Yeah, it's a pretty cool scenario that I'm in. As far as that goes, still gunning to try and do our best to get up toward Alton and Wheeler in the next 2 events in the BPT. And Dustin's ahead of me too, but he's just a few points ahead of me. Alton and Wheeler's a little bit more separation. And then the Invitationals, it's been a great run this year. I don't know if I'm fishing Detroit or not. Haven't decided on that. But I've been very blessed on the Invitationals this year to make, I've fished 5 of them, made 4 top 10s. And, anytime you can do that, put a lot of money in your pocket, won one of them. And that's something that's always a huge blessing. So it's been a fun year for sure. But yeah, I fished the Invitationals from the get-go at the beginning of the season, mostly just concerned about like having another avenue for requalifying for the BPT if the points didn't go the way I wanted it to. And being 4th in AOI in the BPT, requalifying isn't going to be much of a concern. So
Drew,
as far as
little secret. I think you'll be all right.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be okay. So as a result, I won't be going to the Detroit River, I don't think. But it's been a great season on invitationals. We got 2 more BPTs left. We'll have both team series in the postseason events, and then I have 3 more Toyota Series events to go. So still a good bit of fishing left. Definitely on the back half of the season, but still a good bit left to go. And I'm very excited for the next few smallmouth tournaments for sure.
I was about to say, although I get it, timing, tons of things to do. You might have to just go to Detroit to catch their favorite brown bass up there.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, St. Clair specifically is probably my favorite fishery in the country. I don't know if there's any place I've ever been that spits out as many 3-pound smallmouth as that fishery does, 3 to 4 pounders. I mean, and the thing about that place that's so magical, especially in the summer, is they live so far offshore and so far out in the middle of absolutely nowhere that you can legitimately, like, you can tell yourself you're fishing for fish that have never been fished for, and you might be right. Like, that's the amazing thing about that lake is there's just so much surface acreage and there's so many smallmouth to fill it, and it's a magical place. I'm very excited to see the weights from that tournament. It's just gonna be an interesting dynamic because you're gonna have people running up to Clare, you're gonna have people running to Erie. It's on the weekend, which means you're gonna get the boat traffic of the Detroit River and all the things that come with that. Versus the Erie direction it's not really as much of a boat traffic issue as it is a wind issue.
Yeah.
And there's just going to be a whole lot of storylines in that one. So I'm excited to keep up with it. That week, I think I'm actually going to go up to Grand Traverse at the top of Michigan and go fun fishing. That's a really cool place. It's very unique and it's got some big brown ones in it. So I will be getting my fix that week regardless.
I didn't do a whole lot of fishing, but I was just there this past weekend, so I completely understand.
It's a cool place, man. That place is beautiful.
All right. Well, hey, Drew Gill, everyone. Drew, thanks for stopping by and giving us a fishing report. There you have it. Words of wisdom and a little fishing report from Drew Gill. Truly the most efficient fisherman this year, although technically not in points. From being a rookie to coming up and doing this well to just trailing the past 2 Anglers of the Year is pretty impressive, and I hope we can join him at the end of the year with an AOY trophy in hand. Speaking of someone that knows about catching a lot of fish, we are now going to join the owner and title sponsor of this podcast right here, Andy Clayburn of FishDaddy.
How's it going?
Hey, it's going good. I feel like it's been forever since we've seen you. You know, we spent all winter talking and seeing each other, and now it's summer, but it's been fun because we've had some new products to test out, some old products that usually are used for ice now using on the open water. But yeah, it's been a hectic, good summer. How about you?
Yeah, it's been a fun transition, taking some of those ice fishing plastics and still using them in the summer here, especially with my kids. And it's been hectic as well, family with lacrosse and all that stuff too.
Oh yeah. But hey, we're here to talk fishing, and especially this week, we got to focus on panfish, right? And I don't know about you, but it may not have been the first fish I ever caught, but it feels like bluegill, sunfish that's like the iconic childhood fish. It's like the first fish that you talk about. If you ask anyone if they've ever caught a fish who doesn't fish, they'll be like, I think I caught a bluegill once. It's like,
yeah,
it's that standard fish. And, I found it really cool living in different parts of the world, or different parts of the US, I should say, how people call them different things, in some parts of the world, a bluegill is a sunfish, a shell cracker. I've heard
a brim.
Red ear. I've heard a warmouth, even though warmouth means something different here,
Yeah.
So, but one thing stands true. They're fun to catch, and they're even better in the pan, hence the name panfish.
Absolutely.
So, you got so many baits at FishDaddy, and we hammer walleye on some. We got some of my favorite bass baits, but truly, one bait in particular sticks out in my mind. But the soft line bread and butter is in the panfish, right?
Absolutely. The new biosilicone soft lures. Some of them have glow features. They're perfect for pan fishing. They have a product inside of them called Terabyte, which enhances the taste, the smell. So it infuses with pheromones as well. So once they bite onto them, they actually hang on to them. And we've had a lot of really good luck bobber fishing with them, just as well as a live bait.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's one thing that I've really realized, especially with using your baits over the past year, is scent. I don't know if it always makes the fish bite, but once they do bite, it definitely, you see the difference on how long they hang on to it, and that could be the difference of if you're ready to set that hook or not. That could give you an extra few fish every year if you're not right on the set.
Yeah, so sense it's one component of it. You got sight, sound, vibration. But with our products in particular, with the pheromones and the omega-3 fatty acids that are in it, those are the building blocks of protein. So if a fish tastes protein, fish are meat eaters, right? So they'll hang on to it.
Absolutely. If they think they're getting rewarded,
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll start. We're going to talk about some baits if you don't mind, right? Because I think we have to, because these baits are super unique. I looked at the lineup and I said, hey, I don't want to show anything that's something we see all the time. There's nothing in this lineup that I feel like you see all the time. So it's perfect. First one here, all right? This little bowler. Get that reel up close to the screen, all right? We're going to show you guys some video here. But super cool bait. Pretty simplistic, but you get a lot of action out of that back little tail if you want it, depending on how you rig it. Or you can rig it to where it barely has any action to those really standoffish fish, because, a little tiny spike doesn't have much action at all, but that looks like a little tiny spike.
Absolutely. So that bait in particular is designed, obviously, if you hold that up so your viewers can look at it, the little ball on the end is essentially you add weight to it. So then when you're jigging it, that tail will move. And what's cool about it, so if you're ice fishing, it's really designed, if you have a spoon with a treble hook, you put one bowler per treble hook. So now you have 3 different baits on your one spoon. If you're ice fishing and you're using a standard tungsten jig, for us, we have our dip and rip lineup. If you pair that, you can thread it like you're talking about, and it's a lot more subtle horizontal presentation. So it's a very versatile soft lure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I've caught already, I've caught bluegill, I've caught crappie, I've caught perch on this bait. So just because it's little doesn't mean you only will catch little fish on it. It's it all depends on what they kind of want that day.
Yeah, exactly. And so up here on Mille Lacs Lake, a lot of times what anglers do for either jumbo perch fishing or walleye fishing, we do what's called a chandelier, which is just a common technique most people do with a jigging spoon. And then they'll add Euro larvae, a bunch of Euro larvae onto the treble hook. That is a perfect substitute for that. And we've had luck getting jumbo perch and walleyes doing that up on Mille Lacs.
Absolutely. I could see that working nonstop. And talking about another bait that I love for panfish, but again, you said the word walleye, because I caught so many walleye one day on this, it shocked me, is my personal favorite, the Spyro.
Yeah. That's also my personal favorite as well.
I think right now we're going to show everyone who's watching the YouTube version of the show the action on this bait. And truly, there's plenty of things in life you should believe without seeing, but I always said with this bait, seeing is believing, because I didn't even need to fish with it. Just by putting it in the water, I truly knew that it was going to catch fish, because there's hardly anything that moves like this. And if it does, it's usually bigger in size to make it move like that.
Yeah, and what we were trying to do is find a nice ice fishing bait / open water bait that you can put under your bobber or ice fishing while you're vertical jigging. And the advantage you get is it's long enough that you get a long, almost like wave type action to it.
Yep.
But yet small enough and supple enough with that biodegradable silicone that you get the action that you're truly looking for in a bait like that. So it's a true vertical jigging or under a bobber style soft lure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing about it is it can imitate, as obviously super easy to imitate a worm, but very much so a small minnow too, the way it moves, all the way to like a wiggler, a larvae of a dragonfly or something. So I really like it because of how truly versatile it is. And that goes with same for the next bait we're going to talk about here in a second. But they each have a nice size. They're close to the same size, but the size is a perfect profile where it can mimic multiple different things, kind of based on what color you choose that we have to offer.
Yeah, the size in regards to that particular the spiral
Yeah.
tail. What's nice about that is you can trim down the spiral tail if the situation calls for that. So you can make it virtually almost any size. And I have actually found that spiral tail to work in situations where a live bait called mousies. I don't know if you guys have them out in Illinois,
Sure.
but it's a good substitute for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it can be fished a lot of different ways. And when I was talking about our next bait being able to be mutilated, is the hopper tail, right? So another tail bait, and you can see because it's got that big tail there. And again,
Yeah.
we're going to show some better footage than this on the screen. But you have this bait that's kind of got three different compartments to it. I like to say you have a solid head, which I really like because it doesn't tear up as much. It helps you hook it or thread it depending on how you're gonna use it. And then you got this ribbed body, gives off a little extra vibration and stuff, but it also makes the bait nice and slender. And then you have this tail that is unlike the spiro tail, which is one flowing piece. This is two. This has two little tails, and you'll see that in the water, the way it's acting. But, this bait, I see myself more than any fish two different ways. I fish it whole, and I also almost get rid of 2/3 of the body and fish it with just a little tiny bit of the body. But mostly I'm just fishing those small little tails when it's really finessey.
So we kind of fish it three different ways in Minnesota here for panfish.
Yeah.
The first way, we'll just nose hook it where you were calling the head.
Yeah.
We'll nose hook it for crappies. Most crappies don't have a problem taking that full profile.
Yeah.
So when you jig it, you get a long jigging stroke, and then when they come in close, those two with the hopper tail, the split tail there, it'll actually slowly start to float, and then that's usually when the crappie will bite. So, and then when we're sunny fishing, we'll put it on a size 3 or size 4 dip and rip tungsten jig, and then we'll cut the majority of the body off, like you're talking about. Just leave that hopper, the split tail on the back. Absolutely. And that seems to be about right for about the size of a sunfish mouth. And then my two young boys who are 14 and 10 discovered a new way to perch fish up on Mille Lacs with that bait. Is they cut the tail off entirely, hook the body of the fish like it's a wacky style bait, and perch seem to love that whole portion of the body just hooked to wacky style, and that was the ticket when we're up there.
Interesting. Hey, you never know unless you try it, right?
Yeah, and that's what kids are a little more creative than we are, right?
They'll think outside the box for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, awesome baits. And again, a lot of those you can tip, you can vertical jig, you can cast them out. But now this next bait, before I introduce it, I will say this. It's the bait that I had the least amount of experience with, just because the hopper tail, the spiro tail, I just love them so much. It's hard for me to put them down, but there are certain situations that this will work. Especially why I'm pointing this out is I couldn't believe how well this bait worked in the test tank when we were filming these shots, because it's not often you get to see your bait actually working, right? Seeing what it's actually doing. So if you want to introduce this little guy I'm bringing forward now,
Yeah,
Um,
the Lucky J shad, and that particular Lucky J shad has UV holographic and glow flakes in it.
Super cool. Now, what I'm talking about that I couldn't believe how this works because people say, "Oh, it's a test tank. How do you know it works, Jim? You weren't catching fish on it." This is this is the smallest paddle tail I have ever seen in my life. I own, I think, a 42 quart basket of paddle tails, and I've got every color and size in there. I have never seen one this small, yet it's still the paddle tail is true. It moves back and forth and runs straight. You know, I had it on one of the little rip and dip heads, and I was pulling it through the tank, and you could see that thing just searching and swimming through the tank, and it really looked so good. But yeah, so again, what made you kind of come up with having a paddle tail this small, and was that a difficult process?
So we wanted to have a basically a micro paddle tail for two reasons. One, we wanted a single paddle tail that would cover both ice fishing and spring fishing. Is very popular for crappie fishing up here, where you're casting into the reeds, where you can kind of search but still slow down, but have a paddle tail that still moves while you're slowly dragging it back with a bobber. So for those two reasons, so ice fishing in Wisconsin, we were on a clear water lake with that. Put a 5 millimeter dip and rip tungsten jig with that vertical jigging. The crappies were coming in and crushing it during ice fishing. Fast forward to our springtime, we go out to Lake Minnetonka, we're close to our headquarters here, and we're using rocket bobbers, weighted bobber, so you can cast far towards the reeds, and your boat can be far away, and then you bring that back, and they were hitting them both when they were reeling them back, and then also just under the bobber.
Pause. Yeah.
Yep, on the pause.
And again, perfect time. I mean, if you want to talk about fry imitation, whether
Yeah.
it's crappie or bluegill, I mean, again, you know, the videos I'm showing are better, but it's so nice and small. I mean, it's approximately 1 inch long. Again, multiple colors. I really do like, you've seen the Spyro tail and now the Lucky Jays. You know, I have those in the clear holographic UV. I believe that puts a more natural look out there. Clear doesn't mean the fish can't see it. That's for sure what I've learned, you know.
Yeah.
Whether they see the holographic flake out of it, whether they see the silhouette of the body, or if they truly feel it, you know, they're using those sensories to feel the bait. They can track that down for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And you think about tadpoles at the different life cycle, they're primarily clear, and fish seem to find those just fine as well.
Yeah, again, same with fry. You know, they look like glass minnows.
Yep.
They haven't developed pigment really yet, or they haven't eaten protein that have started making their colors and meat get full. So they're very clear. So yeah, that's nice touch on that one. I wanted to touch on that because that's awesome.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
So, you know, those are kind of the four soft baits that I've been using that I had all winter that I also looked forward to using this spring, and I did. But later this spring, I got my hands on a new bait, and we were throwing around some testing this week, and I think we settled on a new name, right?
Yeah, we did.
So we let the people
go
know.
ahead and announce it.
All right. We now have a new bait in our soft lineup. Again, still made out of the same biosilicone that you love. And we should really talk about that a little more, Andy, is these baits we use, you and I both do it. We're both guilty of it. We use the word plastic, right? Because it's in our head. When you go in fishing, since I've grown up, if it's hard, it's either wood or hard plastic. And if it's soft plastic. But now we have some new things out there. We have, you know, TPE, the ultra stretchy stuff. And now FishDaddy, really the innovators and leaders in the market, especially here in America, biosilicone.
Yeah, biosilicone. So we'll touch on that a little bit, just the biosilicone portion.
Yeah.
The biosilicone, the major advantages is you're going to have the same durability you're familiar with your plastic plastic fishing. A lot of times we say plastic just so a customer has an understanding of what they're purchasing. It's a soft lure, correct? So biosilicone, the major advantages is you start with a scentless blank canvas versus, have you ever smelled plastisol? It doesn't, it doesn't smell like fish, right?
Yeah.
So
Burning
that's one
tires.
major. Yep, that's one. It smells like burning tires. We start with a blank canvas, and then, like we talked about earlier, we infuse it with terabite, so it only smells like how we want it to smell. Yeah. And then we add the flavors, the pheromones, and all that into it. You were to take the same terabite, yes, it would work to a certain degree on standard plastics, but you're always, most of the time, you're just trying to mask that plastic smell. Versus this, you're getting closer to what nature's producing. So that's the major benefit. Multiple hook penetrations with silicone versus plastisol. Durability similar. Most of those plastics that you've already showed, we catch 30, 40 panfish per lure. Without having without having issues. And then, so very comparable to as far as durability. And then flexibility is the final thing. You're going to get more flexibility out of biodegradable silicone versus a plastisol. And a common question we get asked about the biosilicone is, how long does it take to biodegrade? Most anglers are trying to understand is, if I leave it on my rod, will it disappear overnight? Yeah. No, it won't. It's a longer process than that. Yeah. So the first step, you'll start to feel kind of get chalky. You can put it back in the bag, get it more terabite on it, and you're good to go for a little bit longer. But about 24 hours, you're going to have kind of like a chalky feel if you leave it out. It's not going to be like where it dries up on your hook. That won't happen.
Yeah. That's one thing that I wanted to put out there too, is you're not going to have, the reaction of stuff like Gulp Alive. You're not going to have big freeze, pretty much, right? Like dry freezes onto your hook. So you won't have that. And it's not going to, if you're soaking that bait for, a few minutes, you're not going to have it start breaking down. It's not,
correct. Yeah.
It's not styrofoam. It's not going to be in our environment forever. And that's awesome. It's not plastic. It's going to break down and be okay for the fish and for the water. But that is at least about a year process from start to finish.
Yeah. And Jim, I think you might have the ultimate longest cliffhanger. You might want to tell them what the name of that new bait is.
Here it is, guys. The Scorpio. Check out the video we're going to show you right now here. Now, the cool thing about this bait is I started doing something that I haven't done with any of our baits yet, and that was fishing it super ultralight with a little tiny bait hook and keeping it actually on top of the water. And I was skirting this right past bushes that were leaning over ponds. And it was almost like a fly fishing technique, right? Because I had no weight whatsoever. So I kind of long lined and tossed it out. And you have to find a really light hook, but this bait will float with a super light hook. And I was pulling it right across the top, and it kind of skirts like a water spider. And I think it simulated a lot like the cicadas. I don't know about you guys in Minnesota, but we're getting absolutely hammered right now by the cicada infestation. And, from big bluegill to literally up to, I think, a 3.5 pound largemouth bass ate it from just skirting it across the surface. And that was super cool. Besides that, I've caught rainbow trout on it. I know we're getting away from the panfish, but when I look at it, I really do see a dynamic crappie bait. That's what I personally see when I look at it. So that's why we're talking about it here in the pan fishing section. But again, I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about this bait. I've got to use it for a few weeks here now. What do you have to say about the new Scorpio?
Well, if you pull it out, the first thing people will notice is the shape. Shape looks unique. Yeah. And it's designed to have, like you already talked about, the water bug effect. So what we were really trying to go for is creating a lot of vibration in the water, right? Mm-hmm. So when you pull it back, the tentacles are up front will move back and create a lot of motion in the water. Yep. And we were thinking bass and crappie when we were designing that. There's kind of like a new trend in bass lures that people are trying to go smaller and smaller.
Yep.
For their baits, but we were also thinking crappie because crappie have absolutely just hammered those over and over again in our testing.
Yeah.
And the sunfish will come and they'll kind of take a stab at it, but it primarily is more for crappie and bass. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, like I said, crappie for sure, and don't sleep on it for trout. I think this can be an awesome trout bait, especially like stockers and stuff like that. It's just very insecty looking, between helgrammites, wigglers, larvae, water spiders, water bugs. I mean, this falls under that creepy crawler, category.
Yep, that's exactly right. And we were trying to think of capturing that water bug feature in there.
Absolutely. So that's it for the soft baits, but we also we hit on this a little bit because we have some other things that I've been pulling out of the box from my ice fishing FishDaddy box, and have been using it on fresh water, open water. And it's, again, maybe not always something you want to use, but now with forward facing sonar, we have more glimpse into the water than ever before. And what I have learned, especially in the last month, is a lot of these panfish that I personally always thought panfish were a creature of habit and lived around the shoreline for the most part, maybe pulled off into the first weed line or the first fish crib they found. I'm finding schools of not only crappie, but schools of bluegill that are all over. They're in 15 feet of water, over 40 feet of water. They're in 1 foot of water in 15 feet of water, hanging in a ball of 50 bluegill, just hanging right under the surface. I thought it was shad blowing up. It was bluegill feeding on little insects, first thing in the morning. So, things like the dirty bomb can be used all year long. Especially, we were talking about chandeliering it. You don't even need live bait. You get your bowlers, you get your Spiros, you put those on a hook. You literally have a full bait setup now. You don't have to stop at the tackle store anymore or anything. And you're throwing this out, whether it's vertical jigging for suspended crappie, or you can literally, it's light, but you can cast this, and the way it slowly falls, because it is so light, you can cast it and fish for suspended fish or fish that are hanging right above a structure or something.
Yeah, that's one little secret that we've caught a lot of 1 pound sunnies, and you can look on our social media and scroll back. Open water sunnies using that 1/16 dirty bomb that you're showing. And then a lot of times what we want to do specifically for sun fishing, if you take the Spiro and then you wrap the bait on every single one of those hooks so they can't pull the bait off.
Yeah.
And it's just been a good recipe for large sunfish.
Yeah.
For situations like you're talking specifically AM fishing and PM fishing, because for those that do you want to show your audience what the dirty bomb does, because they might not even see it. It's water activated, and when it touches water, it starts to blink. And so there's five different LED colors. And so it's typically what we tell people is if you're in a clear water lake, you want to go blues and greens, and then the darker stains, you want to go the reds, the pinks, and the gold that Jim has there. And the main advantage is the fish see it and come up and absolutely crush the bait. Yeah. So it's a fun way to fish, especially if you got kids in the boat and they're getting a little bored. They want to try something different. You throw one of those out there and they can see that blinking in the water. It's really exciting for them.
And that's what it's about. I love panfish still to this day for the chase of a true giant. I've started, spending time researching and spending time down on Lake Havasu in Arizona because I want to catch one of those 3-4 pound red ears. We made a special trip, last second decision to try to get on some massive crappie this past year. And I just sent it 8 hours and we found some really nice ones. Down here in Lake Michigan, I'm telling you, one of my buddies or I are going to catch a state record perch. Like it's just a matter of time. Like we are so close to it. And that's what really gets me going now with the panfish. But a lot of people, it is a food source. It's a legitimate food source that's good throughout the year, where some of the bigger species kind of get harder to eat during the summer, or the meat's not as good. Panfish seem to be pretty good year round. And the next generation, there's no easier start than panfish, because you need action. In today's society, it's like baseball's losing people because it's too slow. Well,
Yep.
fishing's known to be a little slow a lot, and something of patience. So if you can take away some of that downtime and add a little more fish catching to a juvenile, a youth, a kid, you're going to make them like it more. You're going to hook them a little more. Real quick, what's a story from your youth that comes to mind right away? Might have to do with a panfish, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Like the first story that pops in my head is this gonna age me a little bit, but there was this place called Burger Brothers, and I had interest in fishing, and I was really the only person in my family that had interest. So naturally, we were dock fishing from shore. There was no access to boats or anything like that. So my mom took me to this place called Burger Brothers. They had a seminar, and at the end of the seminar, they gave you away a free fishing pole. And the fishing pole is one of those telescopic cane poles where you put a little bit of line at the end and a hook. And that's what I did. And I put corn on the hook as a kid. Put the cane pole with the line in the water with the corn, and we were catching sunfish. And we just thought it was the funnest thing ever. We didn't have any idea that you were supposed to have a reel or anything. It was just fun feeling the pull of a sunfish at the end of that cane pole, and that's what it. One of the things that really introduced me into fishing.
Absolutely. And Andy, if someone's never heard of FishDaddy before, why FishDaddy? Why should they try out some of your products today?
Yeah, so FishDaddy, we're all about leading the way with innovation and technology and trying to bring something new and unique to the marketplace. So what we try to do is look back at traditional tackle, but fish forward. So we're trying to acknowledge some baits, like for example, the Dirty Bomb we just showed people. It's an ice fishing spoon or just a spoon that you use for open water, but we're adding the technology side to it. It's water activated LED. Similar with the biosilicone baits, we're choosing not to go with plastisol, purposely trying to advance a newer base product.
All right, everyone. So whether it's the hard baits, some of the original soft biosilicone, look at that little bowler tail going now, or the brand new, and you heard it here for the first time, Scorpio. Check them out and stay tuned, because we're going to take a quick commercial break. All right. You all right, Andy? You sticking around for a little bit?
Yeah, we can stick around for a little bit longer.
All right. We're going to take a quick commercial break, come back, and we're going to talk about what is new for FishDaddy, because there's always something new. And little sneak peek, it might be right behind our guest right now. So guys, come on back. We'll see you in a second.
Midwest Outdoors Magazine helps you enjoy the outdoors, giving you the best information on where to go, what to use, and how to use it. With fishing maps marked by the pros, nature notes, in-depth interviews, and much, much more. Your subscription gets you 10 big issues of the best in fishing, hunting, and the great outdoors. Plus, Midwest Outdoors Digital Edition gives you dozens of extra articles. Sign up now at mwomag.com. That's mwomag.com.
From the company that brought innovation to the ice fishing world with their advancements in LED and glow technology, now brings you a new eco-friendly biosilicone bait that is infused with Terabyte, a proprietary solution comprised of amino acid, omega-3, and pheromones that will generate more strikes, which equals more fish. For more information, visit FishDaddyOutdoors.com.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We are still here with Andy, the CEO, founder, and mad scientist behind FishDaddy. And Andy, we showed some people some lures. We told them it catches fish. Guess what? I think there's a lot of people out there that have lures, and a lot of people tell us that their baits catch fish. So why really? Why choose FishDaddy to try this year, or to buy another pack of something you've tried already?
So the main reason I like to tell people to choose FishDaddy is we really do genuinely try to lead the way with technology and innovation inside of each lure. And you've already seen some examples of that when we're talking about the biodegradable silicone infused with terabyte. We talked about the Dirty Bomb water activated LED spoons. One thing we didn't talk about was our micro LED spoon, which is another great one. And I'll show you another example back here. There's these new armor jigs, which on the surface, it just looks like a standard powder coated jig, right?
But it says something about this Stardust, huh?
Yes. So Stardust, what you can do with that is I can actually take a hammer to this, flatten it out, and it will not chip. So this is a truly no chip paint.
Yeah.
And we have several different options there, several different shapes and sizes. And then this one, I really think, Jim, will get your audience excited. It's our new glow eye jig.
Wow.
As you can see, it's a standard open water jig.
Yep.
VMC hook. And notice the eye is blinking there.
Oh, yeah.
So we have 6 different colors. We have everything from 1/16 of an ounce all the way up to 1 ounce for those Great Lakes fishermen and river fishermen.
Yep.
And I'll show you what it comes with in terms of the kit. There's got one back here. So what's cool about this, can you guys see that?
Oh, yeah, right there. Yep.
So 2 jigs.
Yep.
It comes with a glass rattle, LED, and a glow stick.
Nice. So
all in one kit here.
Nice.
So if you're fishing and you're like, hey, I don't see the benefit of using the LED today, you can insert the glass rattle, or you can say, hey, maybe the LED might be too bright. We have a glow stick in there as well. Nice. Most people who fish with the LEDs, they end up sticking with the LEDs because they see the benefits. And I mean, it's really cool. The fish will see it. And what I try to tell people is, first thing, there's research to show that light attracts fish, right? That's not debatable because it's been scientifically proven through multiple researches. And then the other thing is like, think of your standard like Daredevil spoon. The backside is completely metallic. It captures the sunlight and reflects it. The only disadvantage of Daredevils is you can only fish them shallow water because the benefit of the reflecting light is shallow water. You can put one of these in deep water as well.
And especially, I think about you guys right away with that, between the Rainy River and the Mississippi River from end of February, early March to, end of April. I mean, that water's always kicking. It's always dirty, and you always got good flow. So it's nice to hear you got half ounce up to an ounce even,
Yep.
I can see some giant walleye being caught on that bait for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And we're talking panfish, and
that's
put some live bait on there, and panfish will go for that as well. Walleyes, we kind of earned a reputation up on Lake of the Woods for walleye fishing. And it surprises people when they're using LEDs in clear water lakes, like a Lake Mille Lacs. You got 18-foot water clarity. But once you stop and think about it, most of the fish in Mille Lacs are 30 feet deep. 30 feet deep, it's past the point of water clarity, and therefore it's going to be dark even in the middle of the day, correct?
Yeah.
So check out these glow eye jigs. It took us 3 years to design and develop, and they're finally here. So we're super excited about them.
Love it. Hey, Andy, there's plenty of places to get FishDaddy, but what's the best way for a customer to look it up or get their hands on some for the first time?
So we always want to first direct people to our dealers. Any of our dealers, some of the bigger ones are Shields and Runnings, and then We have a vast network and local bait shops. If for whatever reason they don't have them there, you can ask them. They can get them through the distributors. Otherwise, if none of that works, you can always contact us directly at FishDaddyOutdoors.com.
Very good. And you guys got social media, right? If people want to check out what baits are working, who's catching fish on Bait Daddy. Fish Daddy.
Yeah. So social media, yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We just recently added a TikTok channel. So you can get us on any one of those.
Are there any videos of you dancing on the TikTok?
No, yeah, unfortunately. We'll save that for professionals like you, Jim.
Fair enough. Well, hey, I can't wait to get my fish dance on with my FishDaddy baits. So, make sure you send me some of them jig heads. We'll get those to work. And no, seriously though, I look forward to catching more fish on these baits, especially as the fall comes in. Like I said, for me, the crappie and perch bite only gets better as it gets cooler. But we still have, we talk about panfish, the heart of them, the bluegill, the sunnies, the green sunfish, the pumpkin seeds. I mean, now is the time to be hammering those for the next month.
Absolutely.
So, get some baits. Super, super affordable in my opinion with what's going on in the world today in the market. And like you said, these baits last more than one or two fish, which is a very nice thing.
They do. We try to present the best value possible. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, Andy, keep up the good work, keep making them. We look forward to seeing those new products behind you hitting the shelves. And how about, let's say, we do some smallmouth specialties in the fall. Let's do some Mille Lacs smallies. How about that?
That sounds great. I got the right place and the right baits for that.
All right. Well, that's it, guys. The next time you see us, we'll be doing a smallmouth specialty show and on some new bass baits you got to be keeping your eyes out for. Okay. That'll be sometime later this fall. Hey, Andy, want to thank you for joining us. Any last words for the people?
No, just thank you for having me on the show. If you have any questions of anything that you saw here or just any questions in general about the company, make sure you send us a message on social media. We'll get right back to you.
And that again was Andy Clayburn, everyone, the mastermind behind FishDaddy. And truly, I want to say a huge thanks to him. Our relationship now has been going for about a year. We met down at ICAST, and this podcast wouldn't happen without him. You guys wouldn't be having all this content if it wasn't for him. So Andy, a big thanks, and can't wait for another year. Speaking of ICAST, I know a few of the industry friends out there are watching this show. So hey, if you guys see me on the floor, come on out. Let's do a little talking, and let's put some of the ICAST magic on camera to show the podcast viewers. Now, before we say goodbye this week, it's the Panfish special, right? And it wouldn't be right if we didn't talk about putting some of these fish in the pan. So I'm gonna throw it over to Brennan Shuette, who's gonna tell us his favorite way to enjoy some crappie.
Welcome back, everybody. Brennan Shuette with Midwest Outdoors. And now we're going to be cooking our crappies. We're going to be doing it two different ways. We're going to be smoking crappies, and we're going to be making some awesome blackened crappie tacos. So what I did this morning, I had these crappie fillets in the fridge, soaked them overnight, and this morning I took them back out, washed them off one more time, and then what I did is I made a brine. Now all I did for this brine, for these 10 fillets, is 1 gallon of water, 1 cup of salt, and 1/3 cup of brown sugar. And I let that brine for about 8 hours. So when I got home today, after a day of fishing again, I took them back out, rinsed them all off really nice, just kind of cleaned more of that smudge and all the slime and whatever was left on the fillets. And now what we're gonna do is put them on this tray right here, and I line this with paper towels just to get the water off of those fillets, get them kind of dry. So now the reason I do this is just to get some of the moisture off of the fillets, so that way when it goes on the smoker, what I'm going to be putting on here doesn't drip off. Then we're going to sprinkle some light brown sugar on there. and some sweet honey. So now we have the smoker rolling at 225, and we're gonna go put these suckers on there for about 2 hours and get everything prepped for our blackened crappie tacos. So we're gonna be doing fish tacos 3 different ways. We're gonna be doing a pineapple salsa, a corn salsa, and just your standard pico de gallo type salsa as a garnish on top. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make our pineapple salsa first, and I have some just kind of minced up crushed pineapple. Get that in this mixing bowl. Then you're gonna need a half of a red onion. We'll get that chopped up. I already chopped some tomatoes up, and we're just gonna put a good helping of it in there. I would say about a cup and a quarter. Then we're gonna put in some bell pepper, a little bit of jalapeno for a kick. Finish off this pineapple salsa, we're just gonna top it with a little bit of fresh cilantro and some fresh lime juice. So the next one we're gonna do is a corn salsa. What I have in this bowl here, just, a can of corn. It's 3-4 cups worth. Just gonna dump that all into this mixing bowl. So we got the corn here, we're gonna add some bell pepper, add just a few jalapenos just for that little bit of a kick, and some more onion. We're gonna add some fresh cilantro as well, some more lime juice. Then we're gonna add some chili powder and some ground cumin. Just a dash, you don't need to over season this. And last but not least, we're just gonna do the standard pico de gallo and chopped up tomato. We got some diced red onion. We're gonna add a lot of cilantro to this. Really pack in that flavor. Some lime juice, and if you want a little heat to it, add some jalapeno, maybe a little green onion, salt and pepper to taste, and we have our garnishes ready for blackened crappie tacos. Now to make blackened crappie, all you need is some blackened Cajun seasoning. And you can do this in the house. We're going to be doing it on the flat top here outside with a cast iron flat top. About 2 sticks of butter on high heat, and all we got to do is evenly coat both sides of these crappie fillets. I like to do a light coating, otherwise the Cajun seasoning for me, it can kind of overpower the taste of the fish. So the key to making this blackened crappie is get your cast iron, or if you're just using a normal frying pan, hot as you can. We're going to add 2 sticks of butter onto this. Now we're going to add our fish on once this butter has been melted down. We're going to do them about, I would say 4 to 5 minutes aside until they get a good blackened crisp on the outside of them. So what's a fish taco without fresh flour tortillas? Now typically I do about 1 fillet per taco. Otherwise, when you put all the garnish and everything on, it gets a little full, a little messy. But you can just see how this has such a beautiful crisp to it. We're gonna add our garnishes here. Here's the corn salsa. Add some pineapple salsa. I'm gonna do 1 taco with just the standard pico de gallo. Now that is 3 different flavors of crappie tacos. It's such a great alternative to just always having that standard, deep fried fish. Super flavorful, awesome meal. So we just finished up eating our crappie tacos, and I'm telling you, they were absolutely lights out. There isn't a piece left. Now we're in about 2.5 hours on the smoker for the smoked crappies. We're gonna go get them off, let them cool. Let's go check them out. Now to tell if they're done, kind of my rule of thumb is once the fillets start to curl, just like so, they got a good crisp out on the outside edges of them, they are done. These make a perfect snack. And the best part about it, they're smoked. You can keep them in the fridge for about 7 days at least. Eat them with crackers, eat them with chips. So keep these recipes in mind the next time you guys are out catching crappies. I'm Brennan Shuette with Midwest Outdoors. We'll catch you on the water.
Brennan, those were some darn good looking tacos. In fact, I think it's time to call it for lunch. Well, guys, that brings us to the end of another awesome episode of the Midwest Outdoors podcast. I want to thank Drew and Andy for joining us this week to make it such a special one. And I hope you guys get out, and if you didn't go fishing for National Go Fishing Day, go out, catch some fish, catch some panfish, get back to your roots. Until next time, guys, I'm Jim O'Neill. Thanks for watching the Midwest Outdoors podcast, Tight Lines.